Good morning, everyone. I am Jezebel G. Bautista, and my task for today is to discuss this topic entitled Organizational Change. It is often said that nothing is certain but death and taxes. But a third term has to be added: change. In management, change is expected as part of organizational life. Change refers to an alteration in the present business environment. So before we proceed, here is the outline of my report. So first, I'm going to define organizational change. Then, let's discuss the organizational changes and the types of changes, the forces for change, the process of change, the nature of organizational change, the change agent, the resistance to change, and managing resistance to change. Organizational change refers to a modification or a transformation of the organization's structure, process, or goods. Some examples of organizational change are a new method of doing the work, a new product or process, a new organization structure, and changes in personal policy or employee benefits. Also, it is defined as change that has an impact on the way work is performed and has a significant effects on staff. So, as what I have said a while ago, the method of doing the work affects or it has an impact on the way our employee perform. Then changes can be in the structure of the organization, in the structure of organizational operation and size of work, or in working hours. Later, let's discuss further about the structural change in an organization. Also, organizational changes can be in a way roles are carried out or in the scope of a role that results in a change in the working situation, structure, terms and conditions, or environment. So I have here now table 15.1. So this is the areas of structural change. So it is divided into three groups. So when we say structural, it can be changes in structural components or changes in overall organization design and other structural changes. So let us first discuss or enumerate what are the changes in structural components. So when we say changes in structural components, it can be change in degree of decentralization, change in the span of management, change in methods of coordination, change in job design, and change in work schedule. So these terms are all familiar with us and it is self-explanatory. Then changes in overall organizational design. It can be change between simple structure or the machine bureaucracy, the professional bureaucracy, or the divisionalized form and adhocracy. Also, it can be change to a matrix design. So it simply means that it is the overall design of our organization that has a change. That's why it's about the structure, the machine that we're going to use, then our professionalism toward our works, and our own division or departments. Then the change of matrices. So ano talaga siya, pang overall. Then, the other structure changes can be change in reward system, change in performer appraisal system, and change in control system. So these changes were for the employees so that they are more compensated or a sort of motivation to agree with the changes that taking place in our organization. So here are the types of changes. So we have two. So the changes in our organization can be planned change or unplanned change. So what is planned change? What is the difference of this change versus the unplanned change? So when we say planned change, it is a change resulting from a deliberate decision to alter the organization. It is an intentional and goal oriented. Then unplanned change is imposed on the organization and is often unforeseen. So, bakit kaya may unplanned change? So again, organizational change is defined as any alteration in one or more elements of the organization. Changes can be made in any of the following, such as the work schedules, the basis for the departmentation, the span of management, and the overall organization design or people themselves. So it is also important to bear in mind that any change in an organization may have effects extending beyond the actual arena in which the change takes place. For example, a job enrichment program could require the purchase of the new machinery that might in turn affect other processes in work system. So what are the two forces for change in an organization? So we have here the external forces and the internal forces. So we all know that when we say external, it is outside the organization. So here are the forces that makes an organization change because of these external forces, which we're going to discuss later. Then also, an organization can change not only external, but of course with the influence of the internal forces. So when we say internal forces, it is within or inside our organization. So I have here now figure 15.1. This is the external and internal changes forces. As you can see, in the first drawing in our figure, which is the external change forces. So the circle represent our organization. And here are the forces that influence the change in our organization, such as the educational. What is the current trends in education? Cultural. We have cultural differences from one another. Then social. So social means the social behavior or how people behave outside our organization. Then political. So of course, our organization is affected by the political power of our government. The economic. So also it is influences by the economic status or the economic standing of our country. And also the technological changes. So when we say technological changes, it is the technology and innovation that happening or that is now in not only in our organization but also in the world as well. Then internal change forces are the following. So as you can see naman, very obvious in the drawing that internal means inside. So here are the forces that make our organization change. So the worker activities, so malay mo, they are not motivated anymore. Then also technology is part of that. Maybe they are obsolete na. They don't know how to use the new technology. So yan po, si technology natin is something hindi na functional or luma na. So kailangan ng palitan. Then the objectives of our organization as well, baka lumang-luma na yung objective natin, hindi na tayo nakakasunod sa 21st century learners. Then also political. So inside the organization, there is also a politics. Kaya nga sabi, di ba, that's the politics of our company. company politics, yung nag-aaway-away kayo sa loob, or may palakasan system, or may favoritism system, or whatever. Of course, I know na you understand what I am trying to say with these internal change forces that happening inside the organization. Okay, so again, external forces are the following: the technological change, the globalization, the social and political changes, and the workforce diversity. So external change forces for change derive from the organization's general and task environments. External forces causing changes may include technology, competition, government actions, economic variables, and social values. Government regulations on health, safety, and the conduct of business affect an organization. Also, labor laws influence hiring, pay, training, and promotion decision. Tax laws change. So when we say economic conditions, it can be the recession, the money supplies, the inflation, and the interest rates are sources of change. So organizational changes are of three types. So technological, so made possible by breakthrough in computer and word processing technologies. It can also be structural, change in organizational design and made possible by rearranging product groups into different divisions. It can also be human or the workforce diversity. Example, changing people in the organization by improving the managerial ability of top executives. Then, paralleling the increased awareness of social and technological change has been a great deal of concern about organizational change. Changes in any of the elements of general environment or in task environment may necessitate a change in the organization itself. Change may also be brought about internally by a new manager or by the new philosophy of existing manager. In the international element of the general environment, a foreign competitor might introduce a new product, increase prices, reduce prices, change standards, or enter new markets, thus forcing domestic organization to react. In the political element, new laws, court decisions, and regulations all affects organizations. The technological element may yield new production technology that the organizations need to explore. Largely due to its proximity to the organizations, the task environment usually is an even more powerful force for change. Competitors obviously influence organization via their price structures and product lines. Customers determines what product can be sold at what prices. The organizational must constantly be concerned with consumers' tastes and preferences. In a like manner, suppliers affect organizations by raising or lowering prices, changing product lines, or even snapping trade relations with a company. Regulators can have dramatic effects on the organizations. The trade or labor unions are forces for change when they demand and succeed in getting higher wages or go out on strike. So, the example of this is the ACT teachers in our organization. Finally, subsidiaries can support change as they add to or drain from the resources base of the holding company. Finally, cultural changes in such areas as mode of dress, reasons for people working, compositions of the labor force, and changes in traditional female and male roles can affect the organizational environment. The socio-cultural element reflecting societal values determine what kind of products or services will find a ready market. It appears that external change forces have a greater effect on organizational change than internal stimuli, as the diverse and numerous management has hardly any control over them. So what are the internal forces again? So we have the change in managerial personnel, declining effectiveness, change in work climate or deficiency in existing system, crisis or employee expectation. So these are the forces that affect our organization. Internal change forces, pressures for change may also originate from within the organization. In other words, various forces inside the organization may cause change. These forces might include managerial policies or styles, systems and procedures, technology, and employee attitudes. For example, top management decision to shift its goals from long-term growth to short-term profit is likely to affect the goals of various departments and may even lead to reorganization. In short, if top management revises the organization's goal, organizational change is likely to result. A decision by Philip India Ltd is an example to enter the computer market, or a decision to increase a 10-year product sales goal by 3% would occasion mere organization changes. Other internal forces may actually be indirect reflections of external forces. A sociocultural value shift, for example, workers' attitude toward their jobs may also shift, and they may demand a change in working hours or working conditions. So one of the example is that um, the teachers in Manila was only they are required to work for 6 hours. Before, 8 hours. But then, nakipaglaban po yung mga ACT teachers. Sinabi nila, 6 hours lang po ang required. Dapat mag-work ang isang guro sa loob ng eskwelahan because the additional 2 hours can be done at home. Like for example, preparing their lesson plans and recording the work of the student and etc. In such case, even though the force is rooted in the external environment, the organization must respond directly to the internal pressures it generates. For example, the development of the new set of expectation for job performance will influence the values and behavior of the employees affected. The employee should adapt to this expectation to resist them. However, these two sets of factors are not found in isolation. Rather, they are often interrelated. So the process of change. So I have here now another figure. So we have the unfreezing, or it means reducing forces for status quo. Then we have an arrow going to change. Change means developing new attitudes, values, and behavior. And we have refreezing, reinforcing new attitudes, values, and behavior. So as you can see, all the people there in the drawing is color gray, right? They are color gray, while one person there in the middle is color red. So it simply means that that is the symbol of change. So this is now the process of change. So our organization might feel unfreezing first, meaning we are reducing forces to status quo. Then we have to embrace this change. So we are developing new attitude, values, and behavior so that we can embrace, or we have to go with the changes that happening in our organization. Then the refreezing, reinforcing new attitude, values, and behavior. So meaning you embrace that change, and you are now ready to take the challenge for the change of organization. Also, I have here table 15.5, which indicates the process of change has to pass through 6 different phases. So, hindi lang daw 3 phases, dapat daw 6. So, we have here phase 1 up to phase 6. This is the model of change process. So, the box at the top represent the stimulus on power structure. And the boxes at the bottom of these spaces are the reaction on power structure. So we have here pressure on top management. So what will be our action or reaction on power structure? So we have proposal to take action. So the process of change begins as soon as top management start feeling need of pressure for change from within the enterprise or organization. This is usually caused by some significant problems such as sharp drop in sales, for example, in a company, or a serious labor trouble, or a high labor turnover. Then, phase two is the intervention at top. So, what will be our reaction? Reorientation to internal problems. It simply means that an external agent is often invited to suggest a definition of the problem and start the process of getting organization people to focus on it. If internal staff people are competent enough and can be trusted, they can also manage the process of change equally well. Phase 3, diagnosis of problem areas. So our reaction, reorientation to internal problems, meaning the change agent and the manager start gathering necessary information and analyze it so as to recognize the more important problems and give attention to these. We now proceed to phase 4, intervention of new solutions. So what will be our action? Commitment to new courses or action. So it means it is important for the agent to stimulate through and try to avoid using the same old methods. Solutions are searched out by creatively developing new plausible alternatives. If subordinates are encouraged to participate in the process, they will develop a sense of involvement and are likely to be more committed to the course of action finally chosen. Phase 5, experimentation with new solutions. Our reaction will be search for result. It simply means that the solutions developed in phase 4 are normally put to tests on a small scale and the results analyzed. If the solution is successful in one unit or a certain part of a unit, it may be tried in the organization as a whole. Then the last phase is the reinforcement for the positive result. So our reaction will be acceptance of new practices. If the course of action is found desirable after being properly tested, it should be accepted voluntarily by the organization members. Improved performance should be the source of reinforcement and thus should lead to be committed to the change. So here is now the nature of organizational change. So figure 15.2, nature of organizational change. As you can see, our organization was influenced or were influenced by external forces for change and also by external forces, external and internal. So we have external forces for change or task environment, or external forces for change or the general environment. Then it is also affected by the internal forces for change. So what will be the reaction of our organization? What kind of change is he or it will take? Is it reactive change or planned change? So when we say reactive change, it is unplanned change. So we have two reaction, planned change or unplanned change. So that is the nature of organizational change. That's why our organization change. And how does it react with the changes that was affected or that were affected by the external forces and the internal forces within or outside our organization. So change agent is anyone who has the skills and power to stimulate, facilitate, and coordinate the change effort. Change agents may be either external or internal. So as you can remember kanina, doon sa process of change, ito na yung mga tao kanina na may gray at merong red. So yung si red na nasa gitna, siya po yung change agent. Roles of a change agent, so consulting. So as a consultant, the manager places employees in touch with the data from outside the organization or helping organization members to generate data from within the organization. The overall purpose is to help employees find solutions of problems through analysis of the valid data. Then also, training. to help organization members derive implication for action from the present data, and to provide organization members with a new set of skills, the ability to retrieve, translate, and the new data to solve future problems. So this agent of change train the employees. Then research. Finally, the closely associated with the previous role, the managers may assume the role of researcher. As a researcher, the manager may train organization members in a skill needed for valid evaluation of the effectiveness of action plans and have been implemented. Types of change agent. Number one, we have outside pressure type. These change agents work to change system from outside the organization. They are not members of the company. They are trying to change and use various pressure tactics such as mass demonstration, civil disobedience, and violence to accomplish their objectives. Then we have people change technology type. So the focus of activity for this type of change agent is the individual. The change agent may be concerned with the employee morale and motivation, including absenteeism, turnover, and the quality of work performed. The method used include job enrichment, goal, and etc. Then the number three type of change agent is analysis for the top type. Changing the organizational structure as to improve output and efficiency, the change agent uses operations research, system analysis, policy studies, and other forms of analytical approaches to change the organization structure or technology. Then we have organization development type. It focused their attention in internal processes such as intergroup relations, communications, and decision making. Their intervention strategy is often called a cultural change approach because they thoroughly analyze the culture of the target organization. What are the skills of the change agent? So we have empathy. So when we say empathy, this is the skill of understanding the feelings of another person. Empathy leads to improved communication and understanding between the change agent and the organization members. So when we say empathy, you are putting yourself in the shoes of the other person. Then we have linkage. This refers to the extent to which the change agent and the organization members are tied together in collaborative activities. The greater the collaborative involvement, the more likely the change agent will be successful. So meaning, linkages is something like your contact or your link or your friends or your how connected are you with other people within the organization. Then proximity. This refers to the physical and psychological closeness of the change agent and the organization members. Proximity has relevance to open door policy and the visibility of the change agent during working. Then structuring. This factor refers to the ability of the change agent and organization members to clearly plan and organize their activities concerning the change effort. A clearly designed change effort is more likely to be understood and implemented by the employees. Openness. This characteristic refers to the degree to which the change agent and organization members are willing to hear, respond to, and be influenced by one another. So, ibig sabihin, they are open with the idea, they are open to accept the change already. Then reward. This refers to the nature and variety of potential positive outcome of the change effort that might accrue to the change agent and the organization members. Change effort should be designed so that the employees are rewarded for the changing. So reward is also a source of motivation so that the employees will not hesitate to the changes in an organization. So why resist to change or resistant to change? So there are two types of resistant to change, namely we have individual resistance and the organizational resistance. So when we say individual resistance, Sources of resistance to change reside in basic human characteristics such as perceptions, personalities, and needs. So, of course, you are resistant to change because maybe you are thinking otherwise, or you're thinking further changes that you cannot embrace with, or you are not open with the changes just for now. Reasons of individual resistance are economic reasons. The economic reasons of resistance to change usually focus on fear of technological unemployment, fear of demotion, and thus reduced pay, fear of reduced work hours, and consequently less pay. So more about our sweldo or money. Then fear of loss. So when a change is impending, some employees may be fear losing their jobs, status, particularly when an advanced technology is introduced. Then of course, security. People with high need for security are likely to resist change because it threatens their feeling of safety. Status quo. Change may pose disturbance to the existing comforts of status quo. Peer pressure. Individual employees may be prepared to accept change but refuse to accept it for the sake of the group. Baka ayaw ng mga kagrupo niya, barkada niya, kaya ayaw niya na rin. Then disruption of interpersonal relation. Employees may resist change that threatens to limit meaningful interpersonal relationships on the job. Then social displacement. Introduction of change often result in disturbance of the existing social relationships. Change may also result in breaking up group works. Organizational resistance. So individual sources of resistance to change reside in basic human characteristics such as perception, personalities, and needs. How about in organizations? So resource constraints. So those are the reasons of organizational resources. So sources are major constraints for many organizations. The necessary financial, material, and human resources may not be available to the organization to make the needed changes. So here are the employees as you can see in the drawing, and this is the management. So they are playing, naghihilahan po sila nung rope kung magre-resist, parang nagre-resist sila with each other kasi resistant to change nga. Then structural inertia. Some organizational structure have inbuilt mechanism for resistance to change. Example, in bureaucratic structure where jobs are narrowly defined and lines of authority are clearly spelled out, change would be difficult. Then sunk cost. Some organization invest a huge amount of capital in fixed asset. If an organization wishes to introduce change, then, di ba, yung pera sayang, yung kanilang asset na nilagay sayang. Then politics. Organizational changes may also shift the existing balance of power in an organization. Individuals or group who hold power under the current arrangement may fear losing their political advantages. So baka ma-demote po ang kanilang position or mapalitan sila ng iba. Then here are the managing resistance to change. So first we have education and communication. So how do we manage change? So communication about impending change is essential if employees are to adjust effectively. The details of change should be provided and its potential consequences. Educating employees on the new work procedure is often helpful. Then participation. It is difficult for individuals to resist a change decision in which they participated. Prior to make a change, those opposed can be brought in the decision process. Then empathy and support. Active listening is an excellent tool for identifying the reasons behind the resistance. An expression of concerns about the change can provide important feedback that managers can use to improve the change process. Then in negotiation. Another way to deal with the resistance to change is to exchange something of value for reduction in resistance. Then manipulation and cooptation refers to the covert influence attempts, twisting and distorting facts to make them appear more attractive withholding undesirable information, and creating false rumors to get employees to accept a change. Then coercion is the application of direct threats or force on the resistors. They essentially force people to accept a change by explicitly or implicitly threatening them with the loss of their jobs, promotion, possibilities, and transferring them. So feeling ko parang one example is of it is that parang sasabihan ka na um, if you're not into the system, then leave it. Parang ganon. So you don't have a choice but to accept the change. So that's all po. Thank you for listening and again, magandang araw po sa ating lahat.